All right. All right. Joining us now. She's a good friend, longtime friend of the show. You see her work on the Pac-12 Network. She'll be part of the Pac-12 Network's coverage of the inaugural Pac-12 Conference Tournament, which will be held at Tucson at Arizona, a place Kenzie knows well. You've also seen her throughout on ESPN throughout the season as well over the years. They speak of the former All-American at Arizona, Kenzie Fowler, back with us. I can't do a Pac-12 tournament preview without you. With all the years we've been together doing this
Right.
show here when you've been on, it just wouldn't be right. So welcome.
I know I'm fresh off of watching Cal and Arizona, came straight from Hillenbrand to this Zoom call with you. So yeah, fresh off of the field that I'm going to be hanging out all weekend long, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm excited to talk a little Pac-12 and just everything.
Well, let me ask you first as a local, as someone that knows that area very well, what is the buzz like for this historic conference tournament? A first, it's never happened before in the Pac-12. Here we are the week of, finally. We've talked about this in the past when you've been on. Here we are this week. What is the vibe for this historic event, the first ever Pac-12 tournament?
It's a great question. I was kind of wondering that myself as the season has progressed. And if any indication, the last two weekends, Arizona hosting Oregon State and then hosting Cal this weekend for the regular season finale, the fan support has been phenomenal for Arizona. And it's no secret that they've been struggling as of late with, the Pac-12 schedule and their record and everything, but it has not deterred the fans in coming out in full support. So I think that's been a great indication of what's to come for this week at Hillenbrand, because I just think the community, win, lose, they love the sport of softball. So I think they're going to really celebrate the Pac-12, and no matter what team's coming out, I think you're going to see a lot of Arizona fans just hanging around at the ballpark from sunup to sundown, especially that Thursday. There's going to be 4 games. I'm really excited to see the turnout from the community.
Speak to the field. How will it handle so many games? Obviously, you've hosted tournaments throughout, early in the year, so it's nothing new. But what is that going to be like on campus? What's going to be like the facilities? I mean, this is all going to be very unique. A first here that people will be talking about for years. What is that going to be like on game days where you have non-Arizona games and all day and night, really?
The only problem and issue that I see happening is Thursday morning is graduation for the University of Arizona. So I think parking is going to be a little bit dicey on Thursday, which is unfortunate. It's just one of those things. You can't move graduation. You can't move the Pac-12 tournament. They collide on the same time. But other than that, I think it's very important for, especially the first one of its kind, for a place like Arizona, who is so accustomed to hosting so many tournaments because of the weather. It's just, you host almost 4 tournaments every single year. So this is a place and a field and the facilities crew. And I can tell you, I have a bunch of buddies that are working behind the scenes very hard to make sure that everything is ready to go come Wednesday through Saturday. But I think it's very important that this is a place that's very used to hosting these types of tournaments. And I think the field will hold up. It looked great this weekend. I think it's going to be as perfect can be.
Let's talk about the teams in this tournament. And I don't think anybody would have envisioned when we talked Pac-12 tournament at the beginning of the year that we would see Arizona and Arizona State in the playing game. But that's exactly what we're going to get. Wednesday night, Arizona and Arizona State, 8-9 game. Big game for both sides in this rivalry. Arizona State comes in, losing 2 out of 3 to Oregon State. They're going to have to make a deep run just to be eligible for the NCAA tournament. If they get knocked out early, they won't even be eligible for the NCAA tournament because they'll be under 500. And then, of course, Arizona, that will be a story this week with their slide, losing 2 out of 3 to Cal. They did win the Sunday game, but they are on the bubble, Kenzie, just like last year. Once again, Arizona on the bubble, in jeopardy of missing the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1986. Let's start with Arizona. What has gone wrong for Arizona over the last few weeks that have put them in this spot?
Yeah, there was a couple of weeks where they had UCLA, Washington, and Stanford, and things got a little bit tight. Of course, UCLA has been the dominant team in the Pac-12 conference by far. So you get swept by them. But then to me, it's just been so close on so many games, not being able to get the one win. Like we've seen maybe other teams, like a Cal's been able to get a win here and there, beat a UCLA, hang in there with the other teams. And Arizona just has fallen short a little bit on maybe those game twos, right? When you're going up against maybe the ace number two of a team. So that's kind of been the problem with Arizona, is not being able to get wins, just period. And whether you could look at timely hitting, or of course the circle, where those numbers are going to be a little bit more inflated. Their offense looked really good this weekend. They were just giving up too many runs and too many home runs to be able to keep Cal at bay. So it's crazy that it's going to come down between the two Arizona schools in the play-in game in the first Pac-12 tournament that's held in the state of Arizona. So I think it's kind of interesting. You get that primetime 6 o'clock slot. I think the crowd is going to be packed for that game, and I hope it is. It should be. It should be big feel postseason type game for both of those teams and for the community in Tucson.
Yeah, Arizona State, it was very explained. Megan Bartlett in her first year as head coach. I know you covered her. It was a rebuild, let's be honest. They lost so many players to the portal, talented players. We're not really surprised, perhaps. They had some great wins, but they've kind of slid with the lack of depth. Arizona, I've watched a lot of Arizona recently, including this weekend. It seems to me they had some injuries, too, that have not helped offensively, but they seem young pitching-wise. Is that accurate? That's hurt them a little bit, and it's tough because Arizona, the standard for a pitcher in Arizona is as high as it gets. You know that as well as anybody. You've worn that jersey. You know the scrutiny that comes with that. Just talk about it. How much of that is the youth in that circle that has been kind of hurt Arizona a little bit, that a lot of these pitchers are trying to learn it on the fly.
Right. And Arizona is a team that's just young, period, outside of the circle as well. I was looking out at the outfield today, and they had 3 freshmen in the outfield, a freshman at shortstop, and a freshman DP. So they're very young, just period. And then, of course, you go to the circle, and the only one returner, 4 new players new to this type of Power 5 Pac-12 level. So there is a lot to be improved there, of course, in the circle for next year for Arizona. But I think if they can keep the nucleus of this team together in the offseason, and you can find a horse in the circle, you're looking at a completely flipped type of season for them. So yeah, it's been a rough year for them in the circle. They've been able to find some bright spots with the freshmen that they have, and they're hitting at certain points. So, but yeah, like you're talking about, right on the bubble again.
May need to win a couple of games, and for that to happen, not only they'd have to beat Arizona State, but oh, by the way, they would run into UCLA. Uh, oh boy, who's been quietly really on fire in the second half of the year. Early on, we were wondering, I don't know what's going on. Lost to Oklahoma, dropped the game to Cal. Boy, they figured it out real quick. Maya Brady just won the batting title for UCLA. She's a top 10 finalist for Play of the Year, as is Megan Faremo. And the Bruins come in as the favorites. And I would say, no disrespect to everybody else in the field, but probably a heavy favorite going to this tournament going in. What's your thoughts on the Bruins here? They've come in clicking, and they've played already this year at Arizona. How much of it is it going to benefit teams that have played at Arizona already this year? Do you think that's a factor at all, or no factor?
I think a huge factor, especially a team like Cal, who is going to stay here. They just played in Tucson, and they are going to stay in town in Tucson and get a little training in, get a little R&R. But I think it's a huge advantage. You get a couple of ground balls. You know that the dirt is going to be harder than it is maybe in the Pacific Northwest and even in LA. So you get those ground balls. Those 3 games matter. So I think a huge advantage for sure.
Something you've told me in the past, the ball tends to fly out there. Take us through this week from a weather standpoint. When do you expect the ball to be flying all week? Is it during certain sessions of the day? What can we expect? Is this going to be a hitters friendly type of tournament, or is it depending on when you play?
Let me just pull up my weather app here. So Wednesday, wow, okay. 82 degrees on Wednesday, and then warms up a little bit. 87, 94 on Friday, and 97 on Saturday for that championship game. So maybe that's kind of I don't know, indication of how the play is going to get hotter as the weather goes as well. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter what the temperature is. The ball flies ball flies at Hillenbrand. And even a hitter like Tatum Anzaldo this weekend had 2 home runs on the season, hit 2 this weekend. So that's just kind of the place that Hillenbrand is. I always joke that Hillenbrand's a place where hitters come to get out of slumps. So it's a tough place to be a pitcher for sure, and it's a good place to be a hitter.
So how are you going to be successful if you're a pitcher this week? What advice would you give? You are one of the few that's been successful in that part. What's the key to being successful?
Hit your spots. It's just location side to side. Of course, you want to keep the ball down, but sometimes even when you keep the ball down, the dirt is so hard that if you let a hitter square it up, they can, hit a ball that stays on the ground. It's going to roll fast. So sometimes you see a lot of doubles that way. It's just very strange. It's almost like a glass at times. It just keeps rolling. But to me, when you pitch a Hillenbrand, it's always about the spots and it's always about the off speed. So you've got to make sure that you're not giving balls up center cut. You've got to make sure that you're expanding the plate horizontally, and that's where you're going to find success for sure.
Now, UCLA, Arizona, Arizona State in that block, and you got Stanford as the 4, Oregon as a 5. Hello, that is amazing matchup. Stanford coming off losing 2 out of 3 to Washington. They're trying to play to keep a top 8 national seed alive going for them. Oregon's coming off getting swept at home by Utah. They may need to make a deep run in the conference tournament to host. What's your thoughts on the Ducks and the Cardinal here, who have kind of had some peaks and valleys as of recent?
Looking at that, that's the 4 and 5 seed. That doesn't my brain didn't compute that. You know what I mean? I'm like looking at Stanford. I'm like, they should be the 2 seed, right? Nope, they're the 4 seed. So credit Washington. We're talking here on a Sunday, and Washington wrapped up that series at Stanford with a run rule. That was impressive. So Washington gets that 2 seed, and everything was so tight, the standings. We've been talking about it the last 2 weeks about, are we going to know the bracket? When are we going to know if it's settled? And it really came down to the last inning on Sunday this weekend. So yeah, I think that Oregon Stanford, that's going to be the last game on that Thursday. I think that one's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, what do you expect to see for those 2 teams for being successful? What has to, obviously Stanford's got the great 3-headed monster in the circle pitching wise. What's your thoughts on those 2 teams in that matchup?
Well, I've thought all season long that Oregon's offense has been very underrated, but then they get swept at home this weekend, and the last game a no-hitter from Utah. So just a little bit of a head scratcher there, because to me, the last month they've been playing the best softball that we've seen from them all season long, and their hitting has been dialed in. So you just never know what they're going to turn around, and I'm sure they're going to look at some film and figure out what went wrong for them against the Utes, because you get swept, you get a no-hitter thrown up against you, and then your first matchup is outside of UCLA and Megan Frama, who's probably going to be the Pac-12 pitcher of the year, should be the Pac-12 pitcher of the year. You have a team in Stanford with the best pitchers. So a team that's not feeling great offensively for Oregon, going up a team that can really get it done pitching in the circle.
Then you've got Washington, who did win the 2 games against Stanford, skyrocketed up to the 2 seed. Heather Tarr and company, 2 seed. They'll take on Oregon State. Laura Berg takes 2 out of 3 from Arizona State, avoids the playing game. They get the Huskies. They've dealt with some injuries, kind of a rebuild, but they've got some positive momentum coming in. But Washington, I was impressed. I watched a lot of that Stanford series. They dropped that first game, came back, really took it to Stanford on Sunday with their offense. And their young pitching is coming together. The Huskies, I think they're a lock to host the top 16. They're trying to maybe make some noise here to maybe move up in the seed line. But what's your thoughts on Heather Tarr and the Huskies here?
Yeah, I think they've been steadily just kind of staying with the process and letting their players kind of figure it out. I look at Lindsay Lopez, who pitched a complete game, got the win against Stanford on game 3 on Sunday, and looked dominant. And she has not been maybe her old self that we saw a season ago at Arizona State, where they were the Pac-12 regular season champion and she was the ace of that squad. And so I think that's kind of a sleeper when you have a pitcher who's maybe starting to figure it out. Of course, they also have Ruby Malin and Kelly Lynch, who are very consistent. And I feel like Kelly Lynch has been putting together some really quality innings to help back up Malin in the circle. So if you have Kelly Lynch getting some quality innings, and you get Lindsay Lopez, who's a lefty, a different look. She has the experience in the Pac-12, so she's not going to shy away from anything. And you have her feeling good at the right time, who knows what this Washington team can do. I think they can make a deep run, maybe push UCLA if they keep going through the tournament.
Right, they'll open up against Oregon State, and then the winner of that game will get the winner of Utah Cal. Utah coming off the sweep over Oregon. Amy Hogue and the Utes, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2017. Congrats to Chelsea Spencer. Comes back to her alma mater. She's going to lead Cal back to the NCAA tournament more than likely. That's a fascinating matchup. I know you're looking forward to that one. What's your thoughts there on the Utes and the Bears, who maybe have surprised some the way they've performed this year?
I think Amy Hogue should probably be she would be my pick for coach of the year in the Pac-12 this season with what she's been able to do. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Utah was picked last in the coaches poll. Maybe
near the bottom. Near the bottom.
Yeah. Near the bottom, yeah. Or maybe it was eighth. And you look at what they've been able to do all season long. They're a very well-rounded team. They have good power. They have phenomenal speed. You know they're going to lock it down on defense. And you can just tell there's a different lightness about this team. And it's just so interesting because you think about the last couple of seasons and you could kind of feel the outside pressure on this program and where has the success been, like we've seen before with, you had the Anissa Urtez, Hannah Flippen years where they were dominant, so close to the Women's College World Series. And all of a sudden they just spin this program on their heads and it's a completely different team and a different vibe and a different feel. So I credit Coach Hogue so much with staying through that, the down years and getting her team righted at the right time. I will also say, talking about the Pac-12 as a whole, credit Oregon State and Coach Berg for not giving up on this season with all the injuries. They could have just easily folded. And I feel like the last couple of weekends, they've been playing some of their best ball. I know their record is what their record is. And of course, they're going to have to win the Pac-12 tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. But I just think there's a lot of softball and pride for that team. And you take the last series at home, I think that's huge. So very proud of Oregon State for being able to kind of stay with it. And whatever the journey has been for them, they've played some really solid softball the last couple of weekends.
And then you just saw Cal this weekend with Chelsea Spencer. What jumped out at you about the Bears as they're going to be back in the NCAA tournament for the first time in a while?
Tatum Anzaldo and McKenna Smith are good. Those two hitters, they usually bat in the 1 and 3 spot. Sometimes I've seen Smith in the 2 hole. Those two hitters are as good as two hitters as you're going to see across the country. I was watching them, and Anzaldo, she's a triple threat. She can drag bunt, slap, had a couple home runs. McKenna Smith had a couple of home runs this weekend, was playing lockdown defense. And Cal has a good enough pitching to get some wins. I think their offense is very balanced. They're also a very fast team, good balance of small ball and power, and have enough pitching. They have 4 different arms that they use consistently who have different looks. And to me, Cal is just gritty. They're just competitive. It starts with Chelsea Spencer. I love what she's been able to do with this program. You just think where they were a couple of seasons ago, and was sitting at Hillenbrand today going, what year is this for Chelsea? And it was her 3rd year. And I'm like, it's so impressive, the product that I'm watching on the field versus even just last year. So credit Cal and Coach Spencer and in company. It's been very fun to watch their team this season.
What's your thoughts on the Pac-12 season 2023 after the great postseason last year? Currently, it's the number 2 conference RPI-wise behind the Big 12, which is number 1, which might surprise some people, but they're number 1. Pac-12 is number 2. SEC number 3. I think it's a very healthy debate on who's the top conference. Pac-12's right there. What's been your thoughts covering the league this year? What has stood out to you?
The hitting has stood out to me. I think the last couple of seasons, it's been the conference of the pitching. Some of that pitching has graduated. And to me, I personally think that the Pac-12 might have the best hitting just as a group and some of the headliners for each team. So it's been a tough year for pitchers in the Pac-12 conference because just every single team 1 through 9, it's been fun to watch. If you like home runs and high scoring games, it's been the conference for you.
Could be the theme this week in Arizona, depending on the time on the flight, the ball flying out of there. You mentioned obviously Let's talk about some of the players. The best freshmen in the Pac-12. To me, there's two pictures that stands out from a freshman. But I'll give you the platform here. Your thoughts on the freshman class this year in the Pac-12 and the standouts to you.
I might be wrong on this, but I'm just going to tell you my opinion. I think freshman of the year should be a co-freshman of the year, and I think it should go to Megan Grant and Jordan Woolery. I think Jordan Woolery has slightly better stats in the Pac-12 than Megan Grant, but Megan Grant's stats across the season are better. So I don't know what the voters value more. I think it's what you do in Pac-12. Either way, they have been so dominant. They're batting in the 1 and 3 hole for the best team in the Pac-12, and the numbers they've been putting up. I would love to see a co-freshman there.
You caught me off guard. I was surprised. I thought you would go with a pitcher. You threw a changeup on me on that one because I figured you'd go the pitching route for the freshmen with obviously Stanford's phenom freshman pitcher. And Naja, and then obviously Washington's freshman pitcher.
Yes, I think if Nyjah Kennedy is healthy, then she runs away with it. But unfortunately, she missed almost a month of Pac-12, 3 weeks, I think, and that's too much.
Interesting. All right, you got me there. Maya Brady.
Yeah.
Player of the year, Maya Brady.
Yeah.
What's impressed you about Maya Brady that's taken her game to a different level, quote unquote, to the point where she's in the mix right now for National Player of the Year?
Her power, I think she had 16 home runs. I know she was a couple RBI off. I think Allie Skaggs got her in the RBI by 3. And then I think Jordan Van Hook is at like 19 home runs, 18 home runs. So just a couple of stats off from getting the Triple Crown, but her power this season was really impressive. And again, you always let's start with the best team and you look at the best player on the best team. And she is the person that if the game's on the line, I'm going to be a little bit more careful with. And she just has a different presence about her. I also love the fact that she's anchoring down shortstop for the first time in her career. I know she came in as a kind of utility infield kid and of course was playing behind Brie Perez. So she has been in center field the last 2 seasons. So I think that's just a little extra element there. So she's right in the heart of every single thing for UCLA, and her power has been impressive.
Your schedule is going to be getting busier as time goes. We don't know the next time we'll have you on the show, so I will ask you this now, because you got to. We'll get into some of the stuff you'll be upcoming doing, but World Series teams from the Pac-12. Obviously, last year nobody would have predicted it. If we were doing this a year ago, this time, I don't think neither one of us would have said, "Hey, I think Arizona and Oregon State are going to make it to the World Series." All right, so let's put that out there. That being said, we know UCLA obviously is an OKC threat, a national title threat. Who are some of the other teams you like from the Pac-12 that you think will make noise and make a run to OKC and perhaps join a UCLA?
If Stanford can get their hitting a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, but aggressive, a little bit more power. They definitely have the pitching. We all know this. So, and I think they're comfortable with beating teams 2-1. Of course, we're talking about Washington beating them 8-0 today. So that kind of throws a wrench into everything I'm saying, but consistently throughout 99% of their games have been 2-1, 3-0, 1-0, and they're comfortable there. I think Nyjah Kennedy healthy, and she's finally pitched a couple of weekends in a row. So I think that's huge for them. I also look at Utah. I also look at Washington. I think those 3 teams have enough. I think I think they've got a spunk to them. I think they're on a mission this year, especially not making the tournament this last season and the year before. So I think they're a little bit more motivated in that aspect. And then of course, Washington, I think Washington is playing their best softball right now. And I think they have enough pitching and they definitely have enough hitting to make a run.
And yet I feel like they're the one that's under the radar across the country, right? Nobody's talking about it. It's so bizarre.
100%. I know that they're fine with that. But it's just because they've been a little bit not middle of the pack, right? At the beginning of the year. And I just feel like the last couple of weekends we've started to see, I mean, Ruby Malin, I have been so impressed with her all season long. She's been the ace from day one. I love watching her pitch, really talented. She's got great movement, good off speed. And then of course I talked about it earlier, but you add Kelly Lynch and Lindsay Lopez pitching as good as they are is what we saw last weekend. And Bailey Klingler, she will not be denied. That woman will just win a ball game by herself. I always just watch games and I'm going, why are you pitching to her? Why are you doing it? She's going to hit a home run. And she does. She comes through every single time. So I think Washington looks really good.
I agree. I'm really interested to see if they make a run here at the Pac-12 tournament. Let's say they get to the final, win the Pac-12. Could that be enough for them to maybe be a top 8 national seed instead of top 16?
You, sir.
Well, yeah, I'm asking myself that question as we speak. But I'm and also giving you storylines, by the way, Kenzie.
Thank you.
Because you're right, they're kind of under the radar. We focused a lot on Stanford, me, myself included. Yeah. I picked Stanford before the year to get to the World Series. I'm not wavering on that. I do have concerns about their offense. From that standpoint, the good news is they're going to host for the first time in a while in Palo Alto. I mean, I don't even remember the last time they've hosted. It might be maybe when you played, maybe. I feel like, if not before that. I mean, I'll just say since Mendoza and Shelburne, just so I could just throw their names out there, even though it's probably not accurate.
I remember Arizona had a super there in 2009.
Yeah. It's been a while. And it speaks to the job Jessica Hallister's done since she got there. Because, Kenzie, you know this. When she got there, that program was at the bottom of the Pac-12. And there were people that questioned her going there. Even though it's her alma mater, people were questioning, like, why are you leaving Minnesota, which at the time had dominated the Big Ten and all that. But clearly, she has built this program to her personality. They made the Supers last year, and they're going to probably be a top 16 host this year and host that regional and possibly a Super and have a good path to get to OKC.
Do you think Utah has a chance of hosting?
I think they're outside hosting, but I don't think they care about that. Utah, this, they're comfortable on the road. They are comfortable on the road. They've won regionals on the road before. I think they're battle tested. I think Utah's going to be that 2 seed that's going to be in somebody's regional that they're like, oh, that's not what we're looking forward to.
I would not be comfortable with them coming in as a 2. Okay, so then you're looking at Washington, UCLA, Stanford as locked.
I think they're locks to host. I think Oregon is was in the mix to host. They need some work. They got to get a good tournament to host. Maybe if Utah wins the Pac-12, they can enter the conversation to host. But I think the only thing I'm comfortable saying is Stanford, the big 3 there to host. And I think Utah's a lock to be in the tournament. They're going to be a 2 somewhere. Cal's probably going to be a 2 or a 3 somewhere. Who am I missing here on the list there of the Pac-12 teams? And then Oregon's going to be, if they don't host, they'll be a 2 somewhere as well. And then Arizona, where that's the big question. We'll see how they do in the Pac-12. That could be one that's going to go down to the wire. And then Arizona State and Oregon State honestly probably have to win the Pac-12 tournament at this point, especially with Arizona State being so under 500. But stranger things have happened in the Pac-12, as they say. That needless to say on that. But I think that's the picture. I do agree with Washington. I think Washington, Stanford, UCLA, I could see those 3 being at OKC, which would be good news for our friend Jenna Becerra for a change. She might get to travel to OKC. She's going to Tucson, by the way. Are you 2 going to hang out?
Oh, great. Well, I'm going to definitely be there. I'm not calling the Wednesday game, but it'll be my alum school, Arizona, against Arizona State, a team I cover a lot. So I'm excited to be a fan for that one. So I'll definitely be there.
You're going to show Jenna the booth? Because I'm assuming she'll be doing some Stanford. Oh, you got to show her around. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be packed. I think there's going to be a lot of media members. I think there's going to be a lot of people that the press box is going to be packed. I'm excited.
Does Jenna get to use like the Kenzie Fowler press box, or she got a different press box?
I'm not that special. I don't have a special seat. I'm not that special.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about a little bit nationally, because you've obviously not only done Pac-12 games, but you've done national games for ESPN throughout the season. You've done some SEC games. You're going to do a big West game involving Cal State Fullerton, which is a team that beat Tennessee earlier this year, a team that could be dangerous themselves, could be going to Stanford or UCLA. More than likely, and could be a dangerous team for either of those teams. Give me your overall thoughts nationally, because you've done more national stuff this year. What stood out to you?
I've been so impressed by the pitching in the SEC. It's been really fun to watch Dels, Rogers, Pickens, Penta, Fouts. Like, I think they easily have the best pitching in the country. So as a pitcher myself, it has been very fun to call a couple of those games and just watch as a fan, watch what those young ladies have been able to do. And more, of course, down the board. Also, I think Kiki Malloy, Skylar Wallace, they have just absolutely separated themselves as two of the best players in the SEC. I am so intrigued to see who they're going to give SEC Player of the Year to, because you could easily make a case for either one of them. So I always feel like I know these awards, and then circumstances like this, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, for the first time in a decade, I have no idea who it's going to go to. No idea. So I don't know. It's always interesting to me when you have some really good players coming down to the wire. But back to your question, the pitching has been really fun for me to watch in the SEC. It's been dominant.
Yeah, I know you got to call some Fouts games recently for Alabama. Looks like she's going to be set up there. Who do you think is the best pitcher in college softball right now from what you've seen there? Is it a Fouts? Is it an Ashley Rogers, Tennessee? Could it be a Jordy Ball, who's in the top 10 with Oklahoma? Heck, it could be the entire Oklahoma staff. You mentioned Maddie Penta. It's a fascinating debate this year, and who's the best pitcher. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer.
No, I don't have an answer for that. I think if maybe, like, this is completely just throwing situations out there, but if Ashley Rogers had the innings and workload that Montana and Maddie Penta had, I think it would be clearly her. But she just hasn't thrown as much as those two. And so do you value that, right? Do you value the workload, or do you value just the quality and the moments and being on the best team? And then you could look at Megan Framo over on the West Coast, in my opinion, clearly the best pitcher in the Pac-12, has really separated herself there. But then, of course, you have, the one game against Oklahoma that everybody remembers. So it kind of skews, that a little bit. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for you there, but I just know that the pitching has been really impressive. A lot of them fifth years. So I think that's been a big separator with, the COVID year. Everyone's a little bit stronger. Everyone's a little bit wiser. Everyone has a little bit more edge to them. So I love that. I love being able to see some of these 22, 23-year-olds go at it in their last year, giving us a show every time they come on.
All right, last couple questions before I let you go. This week, when people tune into the Pac-12 tournament, give me a couple keys for whoever, any team, that you're going to look underline to say this is going to be the key in this team hoisting a trophy at the end of this week or making a deep run.
Oof. Want me to give you one for each team, or just a couple off the top of my head?
Just a couple stuff, generic. Doesn't have to be specific to teams. It could be just generic stuff that help you win a conference championship or run.
Yeah, I'm going to say defense, just because I've seen a lot of games. Obviously, I live in Tucson. I go to a lot of games at Hillenbrand, and the dirt is hard. So the game can get very fast. I've seen for some teams that maybe game one, they're not on their toes like they should be, and that dirt's quick. The balls are hit hard there. So things can get out of hand in a hurry if you're not on your toes defensively. I have also seen a lot of teams get the edge or have the edge defensively with shifts. And I think a lot of scouting, because it's teams that you've played, right? It's not like the SEC where you're going to see matchups that you didn't see in the regular season. Every single team has played every single team in the Pac-12 because there's only 9 teams. So I think there's going to be a lot of scouting that goes into this weekend, and who has the best game plan defensively, whether you're going to shift a little bit more to the left side and pitch the batter inside, or crunch the infield to make sure you take away the short game, the slap, you name it. But I think that's going to be a huge separator in who brings it defensively and who's the most prepared.
And they have instant replay this week too, right? Will be in play. So that's going to be a nice little wrinkle too there, which I think will help all the Pac-12 schools, not only this week, but through postseason as well. Yeah. Now, you've got a busy week because you're going to be part of the Pac-12 network coverage from Tucson. You're also the host because you're kind of like the mayor of the city, I feel like. Right. That's just my opinion. So you're going to be like You're going to be showing everybody, hey, welcome aboard, like Jenna. Hey, welcome. Here you go. But you're also going to be doing a big West game for ESPN. So just take me. What's this week going to be like for you? Because there's going to be a lot of pride for you. This is historic. I mean, you grew up there. I don't know if anybody ever thought there would be a Pac-12 tournament. There was always that discussion. There was always the debate: should you have one? Should not have one? But here we are. What's this week going to be like for you? As a softball fan, as somebody who grew up there, but also as a broadcaster, because you've got a busy week ahead.
I know. I feel like I am taking this for granted this weekend. And of course, we've all been talking about the tournament. The tournament is finally here. And of course, I live here and lived here my whole life. I went to Arizona. It's the stadium I feel like half of my life in. So, I'm going to really try and soak it in, even when I'm not calling games and just taking it in. And I think it's going to be very special to have all 9 teams in the same facility at the same time. The energy is going to be outstanding. But yeah, it is going to be a busy week for me. I have some production calls tomorrow and then coaches calls on Tuesday. And then I've got to do my Fullerton and Long Beach prep. Probably going to do that Wednesday. Coaches calls there. Call my doubleheader on Thursday. Call my Fullerton Long Beach game on Friday. And then I will be just right back at Hillenbrand on Saturday, taking it as a fan. I'll go say hi to Danielle and Mark Neely, who will have the championship, and get ready for regionals because, selection Sunday and then Monday comes around and you find out where your assignment is and you've got to do it all again. So I wouldn't have it any other way. It's the best time of the year. It's very busy, not a lot of sleep, a lot of softball, a lot of iPad and phone and laptop and TV going on at the same time, but we love it.
Kind of cool that Danielle Laurie gets to call the Pac-12
Yes.
championship there. I mean, talking about one of the greats ever, I think it's kind of
Yes.
cool to see her. Will be back there, so I know you're looking forward to catching up with her. So tell us again. Let's start with the Pac-12 tournament. Coverage will begin Wednesday with the playing game. You're going to be on the air Thursday, and then the Pac-12 tournament will be on Pac-12 Network Wednesday, Thursday, and then ESPN takes over after that. Give us the breakdown.
Yes. So looking at 5 games, and then from the Pac-12 network, and then 3 games from ESPN. Of course, the championship is on Saturday and doubleheader on Friday night. So a little Pac-12 after dark. Pac-12 after dark. It's going to be West Coast. You get that slot. Everyone's in their bed watching it on a sofa with the blanket, and it's at Hillenbrand. The balls are going to be flying. It's going to be dynamic. So I don't know. It's going to be great. I'm excited.
I just hope for Mark Neely and Danielle's case that if there's any weather delays, they give them the right information. Unlike what happened with Stanford and Washington, where they're like, all right, we're suspending play the next day. And then 30, 40 minutes later, like, nope, actually, we're back.
I can guarantee you, as the mayor of Tucson, we will have perfect weather.
All right, good.
I will make it happen.
Very good. And then you're calling Cal State Fullerton, Long Beach State, a big-time rivalry in the Big West. A Fullerton team that, again, I think is going to be a dangerous team in the NCAAs, either in Los Angeles or in the Palo Alto region, more than likely. You're calling that one when?
That is on Friday on ESPNU. And yeah, I'm excited to call my good friend Danielle O'Toole, who's the pitching coach for Fullerton, and she's been doing a fabulous job with that staff. So excited to see that. And yeah, Fullerton's always so interesting to me. I think for a team like Stanford going to be hosting a regional, you never know where Fullerton's going to be sent because they're West Coast schools. They're always limited. We saw them at Arizona State. We've, of course, seen them at UCLA almost every other year. So I think, an opportunity even if I'm UCLA or Stanford, I'm not really comfortable with having them come into my house because I think they're a very solid team, on the borderline of being ranked almost every weekend. So.
No, I agree, and because of that 400-mile radius rule, which we're not going to get into because it's a long conversation. They're probably going to be at Stanford or UCLA more than likely. Although, Kenzie, maybe a year from now, maybe they won't be if the chatter, and I had Kelly Gatwood, the committee chairwoman this year for the NCAA committee. The committee has recommended to the NCAA that softball go to 32 seeds instead of 16, like volleyball and women's soccer did this fall. And she told me they got a lot of positive feedback from volleyball and women's soccer. So perhaps we could go to 32 seeds in the future for softball, which would eliminate some of the predictability, some of the geography, and supposedly make it a more competitive bracket. Would you be in favor of a 30? Yes, thumbs up. There you go.
Yes,
Thumbs
thumbs
up.
up. Yes, I think that would be awesome. I think that would be, I just feel, I almost will feel bad sometimes for um, teams that are in the states of Florida, in the states of Texas, in the states of California. You're just landlocked. There's only so many places you can go, and at some point that it gets tiring. So I am all in favor of that.
There you go. Well, you got people you know. You can pass that along. You got higher
Oh, I got.
profile people that I know.
I'm like, I don't have anybody.
That's true. Now you're Kenzie Fowler. That's who. Check her out. The Pac-12 Network this week, part of the Pac-12 tournament coverage from Tucson, a historic inaugural Pac-12 tournament. You will be on the call with Ann Schatz, I believe.
And shots. Yep. Natasha Watley and Elise Woodward will have the play-in game on Wednesday, and they will have the other doubleheader on Thursday.
I've known Ann Schatz for a long time, and then you'll be on the ESPN airwaves later in the week, calling Long Beach and Fullerton, and then we'll see you beyond that. So, Kenzie, excited for you. Enjoy the rest of the week. And just as I said, just take care of Jenna for us. All right.
I
Just
feel like I need to go make some cookies or like some gift baskets and like
I
be
think
waiting
so.
at the airport for everybody that's coming to Tucson. The Tucson
Well,
airport is probably my favorite airport ever. So I'm gonna just be waiting for everyone.
the number one question you're gonna get is, hey, so do you know where Coach Kendra is? Do you think you can set me up? Be prepared for that question. Like everybody's
Well,
gonna want to know where he.
I think he's throwing out the first pitch. I don't know if it's the play-in game or the first game on Thursday. I know he's throwing out some first pitch
You
somewhere.
can throw him out every game. Throw him whatever game he
He
wants.
should. Honestly, he should.
Let him pick.
This is honestly, and this is like the Coach Candrea tournament. I feel like he's been more excited than anybody to have, because the Hillenbrand Stadium is his baby. He was such a huge part of getting it in the getting the architect exactly how he wanted it, and so I feel like this is also the Coach Candrea Pac-12 tournament as well.
Right, and he was pushing for this, and obviously, I
Yeah.
think it's fitting that this is the place that they'll be hosting the inaugural one, and I'm glad you'll be around it, both as a broadcaster and as a fan. Kenzie, keep up the great work. Always enjoy. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us under your busy schedule. I'm sure we'll catch up soon here during the postseason at some point when you have a few minutes. But until then,
Yeah.
enjoy the week.
I appreciate it as always.